Ramon, editor of Smart Hustle Magazine, and we're here with Eyal Lifshitz, and I started that right, great, of BlueVine. And BlueVine is an invoice financing company, which companies who need financing and have invoices, that means they have to have some money coming in at some point. But am I right, Eyal, that it's, you're going to get paid in 90 days, 120 days, 6 months. You can come to a company like BlueVine, you all will finance that invoice, and you're paid back through the invoices. Have I summarized what BlueVine is?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely started as focusing on innovating on invoice factoring, and happy to talk about more than that. And we've since expanded out of that scope. I mean, today we think about ourselves as more broadly, really kind of helping small businesses with their everyday financing needs. Last year we launched also a business line of credit. So today we're kind of expanded from that scope. Certainly we did start from invoice financing, which is exactly as you described, right? Small businesses have cash flow issues where they're waiting on receivables to get paid, and it's a way for them to essentially unlock cash, right, without taking debt, because they're basically taking out cash for money that's owed to them. And so that's where we certainly started. But as I mentioned, we did expand out from that, and now we do things of ourselves in a broader sense of not just how do we focus on a very specific financing structure, but how do we help our small business customers with their cash flow needs. And so, and then this goes into our broader vision. Over time, we will expand into further and additional products, again with that same intent in mind. And really, it's not about like how do we make a certain financing product better, but it's really how do we help our customer.
And do you see that? And again, you can, if you want, you can tell your team to do a Facebook Live of your whiteboard, and you can tell us all the world domination plans. But assuming you'll say no to that, does that mean you'll stay in the financing sector, though? Or could we possibly see you get into marketing and other things? Or is it pretty much BlueVine will be, as of today, a finance company, variety of products, or it could be soup to nuts?
It's a really good question, right? And it's some things where we're deliberating internally exactly where we're going to end up like 3, 5, 10 years from now, right? I think it's unlikely that we'll start selling cupcakes at some point, right? I mean, that's far away from what we're doing today. But in the broad sense, I think we will do, certainly financing. But, I think there is a chance that we'll do financial services in general, right? I think in my mind, credit is one piece of the financial services stack, right? But ultimately, our vision is to really innovate through product and technology and generally provide services to our customers, right? If that means that we'll expand out of financing and do additional types of financial services which could benefit our customers, there's certainly a case for that.
Got it. So let's educate the people watching today, Eyal, on the different types of financing there are. I'm just guessing. I'm a proverbial baker. Bakers, I wish to use some other example, but we all use bakers or something. I'm a proverbial baker. I need money. I'm going to use my credit card if I had to get out of the hole. I'm going to borrow it from family, try to go to a bank, and I think then go to a company such as BlueVine. I don't know if you call yourself alternative financing, but
I think first of all, it's like, what type of financing do you need, right? As a consumer, you very much are most consumers are familiar with the type of financing that there are, right? I mean, there's a mortgage, there's an auto loan, there's a credit card, and each of them serves a different purpose, right? And so you certainly, as a consumer, don't try to pay off a house with a credit card, right? You get a mortgage. And so I think even small businesses, there is, I would say, a distinction between what type of financing do you want, right? Do you need working capital, which is usually shorter term? Do you need it for payroll, inventory, supplies, kind of your everyday needs of financing, right? Versus long-term capital, which is more expansion capital. Do I want to open another store, right? Do I need to build a big, buy a big piece of machine, right? And those are a different type of financing. That's like the equivalent in the consumer world of, do I need my credit card to finance kind of my everyday, or do I need a mortgage or a student loan for many, many years? Right. So I think that's where you start off. It's like, what do you need, first of all? And then it's, where do you get it, which is...
Got it. So let's talk about short-term financing.
Yeah. So short-term financing, again, what I consider like everyday financing needs, you use that, again, for marketing expenses, for payroll, for buying inventory in bulk, for really kind of, again, things that you would need on a continuous basis or on a more recurring basis. It's not for capital. It's not for buying, again, real estate, right? So, in that, credit cards are certainly the most prevalent. And then other forms of financing, lines of credit, right? And we can talk about where you can get that. And then there are merchant cash advances, right? And then there's, short-term loans. And then finally, there's also invoice factoring. All of these serve a purpose of helping you access capital for your ongoing needs, okay? And each of these products has, even though we're personally in BlueVine, we do 2 of these types of products. Each of these,
Remind us the 2 you do again is?
we do invoice factoring,
Okay.
and then we do also lines of
Lines
credit.
of credit, got it.
Yes. Each of these types of products carry their own benefits. And so, some of them, are good in some sense, some of them are bad. And so, like, I urge, small business entrepreneurs to really kind of think about what they're looking for, and then they kind of can examine that versus the pros and cons of each type of product. And I'm happy to get into each of those. I mean, I think, look, the situation in the market, right, is that banks, right, are not filling the credit gap as much as historically they did, right? And so the situation today is if you're a small business, it can be challenging to access capital. And even if you can access capital from a bank, then it's a very long and cumbersome process, right? Like, I think, I'm going to be the first one to acknowledge, right? If banks were providing access to, the majority of small business, and they were doing it in a very easy and seamless way, then the need for an alternative financing industry would be, less important, right?
Well, and that goes, Uber would never be here. If the New York City taxi cabs were polite, vacuumed out the back of the taxi, and evolved to have an app 5 years ago, we wouldn't need Uber. They wouldn't be very...
No, of course, right? But like I wouldn't be upfront. That's the reason why the alternative financing exists, because the traditional financing industry is not doing enough, right? And so, when I think about how we can make something which is differentiated, we're not going to compete with banks on lower cost of capital, right? Because our cost of capital is not zero like a bank, right? And so we're not going to be the lowest cost option out there, but what we really focus on is providing a really good product and user experience. And in our world, like, what that means is providing really, really fast service. So we approve within a day and sometimes within hours, okay? Which is in comparison to a bank, which would be a month, right?
Of course.
No paperwork, very easy to do. It takes literally 2 minutes to apply with us, okay? And then the entire process later is very, very easy and seamless, right? You can literally have money in your bank within an hour by pressing a few buttons. And so we're trying to make the process very, very simple for you. And then when we think about our different products, then you can kind of get into the more distinct advantages. But for example, our invoice factoring product, where you can finance invoices by pressing a few buttons. The alternative with traditional invoice factoring is kind of 30-minute process ordeal every time you want to finance invoices. And, my dad was an entrepreneur. His dad was an entrepreneur, small business entrepreneurs. I'm very conscious of the fact that small business owners, right, the most precious commodity for them is their time. Okay, like, they have just so many things to do. They don't have 500 employees working for them, right? And so where we're trying to be different is make their life easier and save them time and make everything very, very simple for them. So that's kind of where we play. And, I would subjectively argue that our product and process is really kind of best in class.
Yeah. And talking about how easy it is, for those who don't understand the back-end process, meaning is it easy because you're not doing your due diligence and everybody come one, come all will finance you, your mother, your grandmother, your cousins just get free money from BlueVine? I know it's not. But how are you able to do that? Because, I mean, if person A is taking, a month or an hour or days to qualify me and you're taking minutes or hours, what gives? Tell us.
How are we doing that, right? I mean, that's sort of the secret sauce of what's under the hood, and I'm happy to...
At a high level.
Yeah, at a high level, I'm happy to get into that, right? We certainly can't provide capital to everybody. I wish we could, right? But, if I wanted to go on the street and hand off like dollars right out on Broadway, then I'm sure I can originate, lots of money.
We can make that happen for sure.
people will take our money, right? The question is whether we'll get it back, and we cannot build a sustainable business by giving out money, not responsibly and without making sure that we'll get paid back. And so obviously part of our core technology is our risk assessment, our ability to assess risk. And look, there's a lot of buzzwords around machine learning and algorithms and all those things that we do. But a lot of it is just how we access data and how we digest the data, right? And really our whole kind of operation and technology is meant towards really providing very, very quick service. And we use technology to do that. And I'll give you like small examples of what that means. Even accessing the data electronically makes it feasible for us to process very, very quickly. Okay, so some of this means, for example, a traditional lender may need to pull a credit report on you, and that means they will literally, pull a report, download a file, read the file. So we don't do that. We let machines do that. We connect through electronic access APIs to the credit bureaus. Once you apply and you give us permission, a written consent to pull your credit, then we electronically fetch the data, and our machines parse the data And so you have machines doing a lot of the work instead of humans. Okay, there's no ability to having humans doing these things very quickly, but in machines you can. That's one example. Another example is if you give us a read access to your bank account, then we don't have to read bank statements and kind of do math on how much income you have and what's your cash flow. We literally have a machine reading your data in a very safe manner. We don't store any passwords or anything like that, but we keep all the data. We read the data, and then we can very quickly analyze it, again, in microseconds, right? And so our ability to access data in an electronic manner and then process it electronically, and then we have a lot of sort of intelligence in-house to do that in a very smart way, but that allows us to make decisions very, very quickly, right? Again, I mean, I think everything has its advantages and disadvantages. Our advantages that we can process very quickly, that our decisions are made very objectively. There's no bias, right? I mean, our machines are colorblind, they're gender blind, they're age blind, all those things which are, I think are very good, right? Because they make decisions very objectively based on financial and credit data, right? And so I think that's very powerful. However, I think if we think about ourselves and we compare ourselves to traditional financing, we're an online company. We don't have somebody who will kind of sit with you and spend like 30 minutes with you.
Give you a mint and a coffee. Hey, yeah, what's going on? I'm Ramon. How are you, buddy? How's your family?
We don't do that, right? And so we can't. We're not your banker. We're not, even your old school traditional factor who will sit with you and spend like an hour with you explaining to you. That is something that we don't do, right? But in contrast, we're able to approve you within an hour, and we're able to have money in your bank within 4 hours. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs today appreciate that.
And I think the world is turning away. I shouldn't say the world's turning away. It depends on what you want. I'm sure you have some relationships, a few, where you want a hug or a handshake or you want to smile. But many of us, especially as we're getting younger and younger, Casper, the mattress, I don't need to sleep on it. Don't want to shake my hand. Don't want somebody to ask me a question. I want to hit a button. I want to come in a dumb brown box or whatever it is. So Amazon.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't shake anybody's hand. I hit a button and I get my prime coffee cup, so I get it. Let's educate a bit. I think I went over that too quickly, but I do want to go back and help us understand, Eyal, for lines of credit and invoice financing.
Yep.
High level, who is it for, who's it not for? Can you educate us, give us a financing 101, just make, whatever you want to share, yeah.
So both of these products at a high level are revolving credit products. Okay. So people are familiar with credit cards, right? Which is a revolving also credit product, which you can use continuously. You don't need to apply every time, right? You have that capital available for you. That is the same both with the line of credit and factoring. The way we think about providing value to our entrepreneurs, our small business customers, is really we want to create a relationship with them. And the thing about our types of products, it's not just a one-time transaction. It's not like I give you a loan for a year, then you take it, then maybe you come back if you need a renewal loan. But our relationship one is an ongoing one. Similar to how you have with your credit card company. You need it when you need it, and you don't need to use it when you don't need to use it. And that's true for both of our products. Both of our products are basically, we give you a credit line. Okay, both for factoring and a line of credit, you get a credit line. Okay, now the difference between the two is invoice financing is you can only access capital by selling receivables. Okay, so if you have an invoice, okay, then you can give us the invoice and we'll advance up to a certain amount of that invoice, and then we get paid by your customer. And you, at any point in time, you can fund receivables or fund invoices up to your available credit. Okay, with a line of credit, you can basically just draw funds up to your amount and then you pay it back. Okay, and so that is more of the first one is secured against specific collateral. The other one is it is secured against your business assets, but it's not secured against it specifically. You can just draw funds and take it. The other one, you actually need invoices. And so the distinction between the two is when would you use invoice factoring, right? Like that's the big question, right? Invoice factoring is a very good product where you want to access more capital than you would be eligible based on your cash flow and credit. Okay, you have receivables because you have large business customers, which typically are the ones that take the longest to pay, right? But they have very good credit. Okay, if your customer is Target and they pay you and they owe you now $50,000, but it's going to take them 60 days to pay you because you delivered your service and product.
I got one, what do you call the thing, the net term for 75 days, man. I was like, what?
Yeah, it happens, right?
It said it right on the document, 75 days. Yeah. That's our terms.
Yeah. And so if you have customers which are large and it takes time for them to pay, but they're good credit customers, right? And so you want to benefit from their credit. Invoice factoring is a good product for that. Because then let's say you're a new business. You don't have history. You don't have cash flow. And if you would apply for a loan or a line of credit, you'd probably get declined because you don't have a lot of history. You don't have a lot of cash flow. or you're looking to access more capital than you would be eligible based on your history, but you have receivables from really good customers. That is a way for you to unlock that capital by going to a factoring company like ours, because we will advance you almost the entire amount of those receivable, not based on your credit, but based on the credit of your customer. Okay, so that is a way to access more capital, and typically it is a lower cost of capital product. Like it's usually lower cost than unsecured credit, and it's no magic there. You're basically, this is secured versus unsecured, so you should be getting a better price than you would be getting for, an unsecured product. So the benefits of that is, number one, you can access more capital if you have larger customers. Number two, it should be a lower price. Number three is you don't have to pay anything while you're waiting, right? So usually when you have a loan, you need to make installment payments, right? In case of factoring, you don't. You can have a receivable that's due in, 70 days, as you may say, and then you get funding for that receivable, and then your customer makes the payment to BlueVine, not you, okay? And you don't need to pay anything for 70 days, okay? Whereas with a loan, you need to make installments.
And that means that there is you have to, I guess electronically, you're going to really connect to Target, Sam's Club, Walmart, or the big company? Or
We don't. Okay. Yeah, so that we have two ways of working. Either we are in a discrete fashion we work with you, or a non-discrete. In a discrete manner, we give you an account number and a PO box, and what you do is you change that information with Walmart, with your customer, and you just tell them, look, I changed my bank account, right? And they still pay in your name.
They're computerized. They don't care. You give them whatever number you tell them.
Yeah, and it just goes to BlueVine, even though it's it's an account number that's dedicated to you. Okay, so that's one way. The non-discrete manner is we notify Walmart, and which is a standard process. We tell Walmart, hey, we're partnering with this with this business, and they have to assign the receivables to us, and they just they forward the money to us, and yeah, it's very easy. So that's the way it works for the factoring product, and you can continuously use that. You finance receivables, right? Those receivables get paid back. You finance additional ones. You just have a credit limit, and you can finance up to that credit limit.
Got it.
It's still revolving.
And I'm curious again. I'm sure this never happens. People are good people, but Eyal, so I'm giving you an invoice. I just got invoiced by Walmart for $50,000. Give me my $50,000 right now. How do you know I'm telling the truth or not?
So we obviously we check, right? I mean, it's like, right, and the larger the amounts, the more diligence that we do, right? And on our factoring facilities, we do facilities from $20,000 up to $2.5 million. Okay, so the larger the facility, the more work we do, right? And we can verify invoices, right? So we can actually ask Walmart, is this Walmart invoice real, right? And especially if we notify Walmart, then we assign the receivables, and they know they need to pay us, right? But again, like factoring, I would say is a very good product if you want to access more capital, right? And if you're newer businesses, or if you have credit challenges, or if you have cash flow challenges, and you want to access more capital at a reasonable rate, factoring is a really good product for that. Okay. Line of credit is really, maybe one more thing about factoring. Factoring is by the nature of the product, is really good for, first of all, for B2B businesses, right? If your customers are consumers, that's not for that. It's more for small businesses where their customers are large corporations or corporations, right? And so it's B2B customers. It's typically ones that have payment terms, not ones that are getting paid on demand, and it's true receivables, not consignment or anything like that. Right. And so, I can talk to you about what verticals typically do factoring, but like example, wholesalers, manufacturers, staffing companies, commercial cleaners, printing companies, anybody that really kind of works business and consulting services, ones that work with larger corporations and kind of have that 30, 60, 90-day cycles, which they're really kind of suffering for, and they can really use someone to help them unlock that cash out of the receivables. Lines of credit is more mass market, right? We do lines of credit from $5,000 up to $100,000. It is really kind of the golden standard of business financing. It is super flexible. You have that money at your availability whenever you need it. You draw funds whenever you want. As you pay down your funds, your payments of principal go back to replenishing your credit. Like a credit card, exactly the same. You have it at your disposal. You don't need to pay anything when you don't use it. When you do want to use it, you pull. You don't have to draw the full amount. You draw as much as you need.
Like really, an envelope of money sitting on your dresser that Dad has or something or whatever.
It's for managing your business. And it's always there for you, and it's as opposed to a credit card where it's mostly for payments. Here you can use it for whatever you want, right? And really small business owners, this is should be their golden standard. Whenever they think they want kind of an ongoing access to capital, line of credit should be the best option for them. Banks do lines of credit. It's harder to get a line of credit from a bank. You really need to be a really, really, solid financial performance and really, really good credit and history. And even then, they're pretty conservative in terms of the amounts that they provide. And it takes a longer time to get a line of credit from a bank. And so there is just we're seeing a lot of demands for line of credit today. It's been a very growing part of our business.
Sure.
And our customers are very happy. So those are the two products that we do. And, and we see a lot of value to our customers. And, our goal is really to help them, succeed. So we're happy.
You seem like a smart guy. Last question, Eyal, and feel free to, if I didn't bring up something, just what's your advice overall for small businesses? You have a lot of experience in growing companies, and clearly you know about money. That's my weak area. I'm a marketing and branding guy. Money is my weak area. So just overall, top of your head, you're speaking to a few thousand people right now, and they're saying, Eyal, talk to two people. Yep. I'm just starting my business. Give us that advice. Small business, me and my buddy, we're in an apartment or whatever it is. And then talk to those like myself who are growing. I have a team of about 5 to 10 people. We're making good money. Talk to those two types of people. Startups, those are starting, and not startup like I'm trying to beat Facebook, but mainstream. Yeah. And then to those who are growing. What's your advice?
No, I'm going to say something which is going to be very obvious for newer businesses, but I think it's something that you should always kind of keep in your mind, and it's really focusing about your customers, right? And I know it's like, yes, I say this, and it's like, it's clear as day, right?
It needs to be said again.
But it's like everything that you do, right? We clearly, outside of nonprofits, all of us are trying to make a decent living, right? And so we think about our profit, we think about our revenue, we think about kind of making and growing our business. But even for us, like the way we started the business, right? We started with what would be the best service and product for our customers, right? I mean, you start there, then the other things will align, right? Because if you can generate good demand for your customers, and if your customers love your product, and if you can create, loyalty from your customers, and if you can create a situation where they're promoting you, then I think everything else will fall into place. Now, obviously you need to do things which are reasonable. Sure, if you give your service away, then people sure will be happy because people like to get free stuff. But, actually that's not the right. You shouldn't think about, your customers who love your product would actually be happy to pay. So like, in my mind, you should think about how do you deliver, try to understand what the needs of your customers are. What do they really need? Price is sort of a secondary thing in my mind, and think about how do you deliver really the best product and service. Everything else will fall into place, right? So that's number one, okay? So, I think that's kind of like for newer businesses as they start out, especially they're formulating their business plan, start there. Yes. Like, what is the gap? What do your customers need? How do you make the lives of your customers better? Like, just think about that. How do you make their life? How do you make them happy? That's what we think about. That's what we thought about when we started the business. Right. With growing businesses, right? I mean, I think, for me, like one of the things that I would probably urge growing businesses is just do your research, right? Like just be smart about things. Again, we talked about it before. I know like small business owners and entrepreneurs, like their time is just so precious. And so sometimes they rush into doing things. Right?
That's me. I run. That's me.
like again, I mean, sometimes it's just worth to take a little bit more time. We do see things, folks, customers that sometimes make decisions which, ultimately, at least in financing, aren't the best decisions for them. And those decisions happen, and I get sometimes why you kind of need to make really quick decisions. I get it. But whenever you can, I'd urge, entrepreneurs and business owners just to take a little bit more time, just have more conversation, do a little more research before you make decisions. I know like there's just like today with the internet, there's just so much data at your access. And so I think it's just
there's no excuse not to have at least formulate some beyond a gut instinct. There's no excuse to have some facts, I guess.
Yeah, and so just it's like a similar to just like as I urge people to be smart consumers, just be smart in your decisions as a business owner and do more research, in particularly around financing. There's just a lot of misinformation out there, so just be careful about the source, right? And we're clearly biased towards BlueVine, but there's a lot of publications out there. We have a lot of partners, whether it's NerdWallet or Fundera or Lendio or others, or Intuit that we partner with, and really kind of think about their objective partners, and they do a good job in kind of helping educate the business owners. So do the research. Number two, be careful about the source. Yes. Try to find sources which are objective.
Don't use fake news.
No.
Awesome. This has been a great conversation. Again, we've been honored to thank you, Eyal, for your time. Eyal Lifshitz, and he's with BlueVine. I would say it all over again what it is, but we've covered that. And I'm Ramon Ray, editor of Smart Hustle Magazine.